Hey, thanks for joining me for today's segment. It's time to ask why. My name is Tammy Davis, founder of Synergescence, a company devoted to up-leveling our experience of health and wellness, as well as dedicated to teaching a different perspective and a point of view that we're not currently assessing when it comes to improving our experience of health and wellness. Right now, we're looking at it from one angle, and through my incessant need to ask why over all the years of my life, I feel like I've uncovered something that is extraordinarily important. And it's not necessarily something that everybody wants to listen to or go for, but I'm hoping that there are people who go, yeah, this actually kind of makes sense. And we begin to start a movement, if you will, that it is time to ask why. And what do I mean by that, right? Well, for the most part, when we have a diagnosis, we accept it. We just listen to it. We take the label and we follow the instructions, and we, kind of know what's happening, or we might ask what's happening, what's going to happen, but we never ask why. Now, before I go any further, allow me to explain that my background does include pharmacology. I am also a internationally certified master clinical aromatherapist / phytotherapist, because I do dedicate a lot of my time to the study of plant constituents and their mechanism of action on the human genome as it relates to drug development. That was a lot to say right there, but that's really what I'm focused on. I'm not against medications. I believe pharmaceuticals have their place in our society. I'm just against the outrageous number of people having to take medications, and we don't even know why they're not really even sure what the cause is. Okay, now if you have an infection, yes, they can test you for the bacteria without question, but yet, do you realize that we have over 100 antibiotics on the market? If you were to look for the number of antidepressants on the market, you're really not going to find a number. You will find groupings because there's a lot of them, but we're looking at well over 100 antidepressants, I guarantee you. 65% of the US population alone is on at least one pharmaceutical. That's right. 65% of the US population is taking at least one prescription medication on an ongoing basis. 50% of the population is taking anywhere between 3 and 4. Now, my complaint here is simply when you go on an antidepressant, they don't necessarily know what chemical is the culprit, okay? And so it's all a guessing game. Same thing goes for high blood pressure. I mean, this is the reason why some people will start with one medication, then they have to go to another, or they end up combining a number of them. And then it gets kind of dangerous. I mean, I have clients right now who currently take 4 and 5 different types of psychotropic medications. We're talking antipsychotics, we're talking anxiolytics, as well as antidepressants. And so this becomes frightening. And so that is the reason why I started off my podcast with this particular episode on It's Time to Ask Why. Because like I said, if we're handed a diagnosis, we accept the label for what it is, and we're often we might be curious as to what's happening or what may happen, but we don't ever want to explore why is this happening. Now, I also realize there's a good number of clinicians out there talking about getting to the root cause of health issues. And I even see people talking about stress, which is really where I'm going with all of this. But we're not looking at stress as the way that I feel like we need to. And this is the part that I bring. This is the point of view that I bring to the table, because this is something that we're not currently discussing. So like I said, there's a lot of people out there talking about getting to the root cause, but I'll tell you straight up, if you are compartmentalizing health and you are treating depression separately from diabetes, separately from high blood pressure, then you are not treating the body holistically. I don't care if you're taking medications and using, conventional medication, and or you're an alternative practitioner and you're including herbs and oils. If you're still treating these conditions as independent of one another, you are what I call compartmentalizing health, and you are not actually getting to the root of the problem. Now, again, let me just say, this is from my perspective. This is from 30 years. Okay, so when I said I started out in pharmacology, this is 30 years of study, application, study, more study, application, and it's been trial and error. It's been a lot of like, well, why didn't that work? Why is this happening? Again, because when I first started with all of this, especially in the area of herbs and oils, I was treating symptoms like everybody else. And you can only get so far with symptoms, and unless you're not getting to the root cause, you are actually causing more harm than good. Now, when I say root cause, and as I mentioned a few minutes ago, or just a little while ago, I said something along the lines of stress. And we do know that stress kills. We hear it all the time. We'll talk about how stress adds to disease. But again, I don't think we're actually looking at it from a perspective that is adding value to our health and wellness. I realize there are a lot of people out there that are promoting stress relief. We are doing a lot of things to relieve our stress, but we're just not getting to the root of the stress. So let's just take a look at that for a minute. Stress, as we are familiar with, is mental and emotional, and oftentimes physical. And if we physical could be excessive exercise. It could be an injury. It could be that you're sick. Okay, these will all be examples of physical stress. And as I mentioned, there's also the mental and emotional. And these are the things that we tend to relate to. And when we talk about taking on stress relief measures, we think of such things as going out and getting some exercise, or just sitting down to relax with some friends, going out for a hike, reading a book, gardening, doing your art. I mean, we have all of these ways of relieving stress, but I'm here to tell you it's not enough, because there's one type of stress that we're not even paying any attention to. And you might disagree with me, because you're going to say, well, there's people out there who are fighting to clean up the environment. And that's right, it's environmental stress. But let me just say a couple of things here. And if you're new to me and you haven't seen anything on my YouTube channel, let me just say that back in the early 1300s, there was the time of the Black Plague. And there, through the Human Genome Project, there's been a number, they study this and the evolution of the human genome. And back in the 1300s, there was a significant imprint that was made to the immune system, because over 70 million people died from that plague, and there wasn't any body that rescued anyone. There were people that survived it, and the only way they survived it that we can pinpoint is the fact that the immune system began to adapt. And this is where I am absolutely fascinated, and this is why I've started Q&A with Mother Nature. You can find a link to sign up for that at synergessence.com. That's where you can submit your questions to me, and we can begin a dialogue. That'll be in a private blog. That as long as you sign up, you will get the password, and you'll be able to read my answers and continue to submit your questions. There's also a private, our closed group rather, on Facebook. Called Synergessence, where I want to do the same thing. That's more along the lines of educating you around essential oils. So the blog is more specific to your health concerns, and kind of an explanation. And then the Synergessence Facebook group is about educating you on how to begin to use essential oils in a more effective manner. That said, like I said, I'm starting Q&A with Mother Nature because I've just discovered some really, really profound things about nature and our ability to adapt. And the human body is amazing. And like I said, there wasn't any one or anything specific that happened that was a human influence that altered these immune systems. It was completely nature that did this. Nature is designed to survive. And it is designed to thrive, more importantly. Life is about life, so it's going to continue on. And so without any human influence, we survived the time of the Black Plague. Now, that imprint that they discovered is still evident today. And if you think about the number of changes that have occurred to this planet since the 1300s, it's fair to say that there's quite a bit. And if we were going to talk about environmental toxins, it's far bigger than just the air and the water, and the ground. It is the foods that we have. It is the medications that we have. It's, it's the supplements that we have, for goodness sake. I mean, everything has so much added to it. So, I mean, I've seen the list of approved chemicals, FDA approved chemicals that can go into packaged items for consumption. So all of this is a stress. Our chemicals in the environment are stress. Those are called, a lot of them are called xenoestrogens. They are lipophilic. Lipophilic means they have the ability to generate cell signaling. Our hormones are lipophilic. Guess what? Essential oils are lipophilic. That's the exciting part here. And so when we start to realize that we have the ability to affect the stress at the cellular level, we're not going to make any changes overnight when it comes to all of the environmental factors that are getting to us, but we can alter the way our body is responding to this environmental stress. And this is the significant part. And that's one piece to what I'm looking at. And as I see this, if you haven't already heard it, kind of surmise this for yourself. But if you actually consider the amount of stress that the societies were under, our ancestors were living in when they were facing the time of the Black Plague, the amount of stress that was, people were dying everywhere. There was no end in sight. I mean, there was no hope, I should say. There was no hope in sight. And yet, through that stressful time, the body changed. So essentially, stress is a protection mechanism. It is, I don't want to say that you want to chronically worry and you want to chronically overthink everything. But if you, under so much pressure, this is the reason why we have diamonds. This is the reason why we have so many cool stones out there, because the pressure that they are placed under when it comes to heat and weight and, mass, and they become these extraordinary specimens, and so are we. So basically, stress in the most natural sense, again, not chronic emotional and mental worry, but true stress in its natural sense, is a protection mechanism. It is the body living in survival mode. And you might say, well, survival mode is deadly and stress kills. Well, there is evidence of that. You're right. But that's because we're not recognizing it for what it is, number one. And number two, we're not relieving it at the cellular level. We are doing everything we can. And I'm not saying that we're all going to live to be 500 years of age. What I am saying is that the quality of our life can be enhanced if we actually begin to address this at the cellular level. Now, I understand there's a number of products on the market that are saying that they're doing this. There's, I'm not going to name anything here, but I've had people come to me, offer me opportunities to represent their company, and I won't do it because these are isolated components, things that we have as scientists have identified as being effective in the body and actually making, systemic improvement in its natural state. I have to emphasize that, in its natural state. But when we start either replicating these chemicals in a lab, they're no longer in its natural state. There's a synergy, hence the reason why my business is called Synergescence. There's a synergy in nature that cannot be reproduced in the lab. They're trying, trust me, they're trying, but it cannot be reproduced. Therefore, when you have a product that says it's got this natural occurring, it's this natural ingredient found in nature. Sometimes they're even found, they're identified in the body, and I guarantee you they're not harvesting it from human beings. So they're actually having to make it. And let me just kind of digress here for a moment and just say the reason we have organic chemistry is because they were able to take two inorganic compounds, and this is back in the late 1800s. They were able to take two inorganic compounds and create urea, which is an organic compound. That was the birth of organic chemistry. So to take inorganic matter and turn it into a representative organic molecule is the reason why they call it organic, and somehow or another they can get away with that. Organic to me is it means it's alive. Okay. You cannot, I mean, Frankenstein, we know Mary Shelley tried to write about Frankenstein. I know people have tried to revive the dead, but you cannot take an inorganic item or a couple or several of them and create an organic compound and then turn around and say that it's organic. It's a replication of an organic molecule. So I just want to say that. So I know there's a lot of products out there and they're probably having benefit for some people, but again, everybody is everybody. It's individual. There's no body's the same. There's no one size fits all to any of these remedies. People want to think there is, but we cannot predict how 7.5 plus billion people are going to react to one stinking product. So, and this goes for pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals. It doesn't make any difference what you're talking about. It's impossible to predict. And in fact, when I look at sometimes when I look at the drugs and I look at how they're being cleared from the body, the enzymes and what particular genetic receptors they are affecting and so forth, believe it or not, there's times that they say the pharmacological action is unknown. So there's no way of telling how this is all affecting us. So we have to take all of this into consideration. And guess what? That's also stress. So bottom line is every single one of us is walking around in survival mode. And I know there's a lot of people using essential oils and they think that, and some of them are benefiting and some of them don't. And, they can use them and they like them and they believe that it's better for them because they're natural. And I completely applaud you for that. And at the same time, you have to be careful of what you're using and how much you're using. This is the reason for the private group on Facebook, because essential oils will influence various chemicals in the body, just like an antidepressant does, just like blood pressure medication does. So you have to be careful about what you're using. And so it's important to, I think, first and foremost, it's time to ask why. Why is this happening? And what can I do? What steps can I take to improve my experience of health and wellness? Again, it has to be something individualized. And my philosophy is, and I live by this, I've been living by this for 30 years. And to give you a little idea, I have both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in my family. There's also high blood pressure, glaucoma, skin cancer, blood cancer, COPD, and that is within 4 people. Actually, my entire grandmother's family, all of her siblings ended up with Alzheimer's, and she was one of 13. So it's not a pretty picture in my family, and that's part of the reason that's been a big catalyst for me is to not have to repeat my family history. Just so you know, I am in my early 50s, and I've gone past the age of when my mother was either both my parents were diagnosed with high blood pressure, and my mother was diagnosed with 2 forms of glaucoma. I can honestly say I have never been told anything. My blood pressure is the exact opposite, and my eyesight is very good. So it's been an effort on my part to not only discover this and share it, but to live it. And I have clients who are living it also, that there's a testimony to if we actually address stress as it is and we embrace it for what it is, which is a survival mechanism, we can begin to work with it. See, you see nature, there's a cooperative effect throughout nature, like I mentioned earlier. Nature will not be controlled no matter how much we think we can. And so even if you are taking medications, you can incorporate a simpler methodology, which includes, my bottom line is diet. And I don't adhere to any one particular type of diet. It's a diet that your body may be asking for. I do not agree with limiting foods from our lives. Maybe temporarily, but that depends on what you're living with. In fact, these are some of the questions that I've asked why about, when somebody says, well, I can't have gluten. And I mean, it's serious. The number of people, as you may know, that go for the gluten-free because we think gluten is bad. Gluten's a protein. And when the body is stressed, the digestive system slows down. It's not because the body's dysfunctional. It's not because it's breaking down. It's because the chemistry's been altered. The chemistry that is used in moods and emotions and so forth is used throughout the entire body. It is what regulates every single function in our body, including our digestion. And if we are on high alert, if we are in survival mode, the body is on high alert. And if we are in that stage, typically we're not supposed to be, if you actually were being honest with yourself, you don't have an appetite. If you are high stressed and there's something seriously going on, you don't think about eating, you actually forget about eating. And that's not because you're being deliberately trying to starve yourself. And I realize there's a lot of mental and psychological factors that go into a lot of things, but if we're just going to be real about everything here, generally, if let's just say, you're running from a dog. Let's say an angry dog is chasing you. You're not thinking about eating, okay? You're just not. You're running for your life because your chemistry has shifted into high gear and it is trying to get you from point A to point B as safely as possible. Only when that stress level is deactivated will you actually think about eating. And you might realize, good Lord, I'm hungry. So, and at some point that could be emotional eating, and it could very well be an appetite. But the bottom line is that stress alters many things in the system besides slowing down the digestion, even slows down the lymphatic system. It does so many different things, but it's not because the body is dysfunctional. It's because it's actually working. I want to say a little bit about that because when the body, and so like that's just, the body has the ability to regulate itself. That's the other thing, through all of this is we are not realizing it has the ability to regulate itself. And many people would go, but say it's not. And you're right, it's not. And I'm going to go back to saying it's due to the environmental factors that we are imposing upon ourselves as a people. So if you were to take into consideration that, realizing that we are all in chronic survival mode, then yes, you could honestly say that we have a complete dysregulation of chemistry, including digestive system, which means an enhancement of oxidative stress. Now, here's the other interesting thing. Oxidative stress is a natural occurrence. It is necessary, guys. It is necessary. If you are injured, if you think about it, oxidative stress creates inflammation, right? It's an inflamed response. If you are consistently angry, or you're consistently upset, or you have a lot of upset in your life, or you've got a lot of stress in your emotional stress in your life, or there's physical stress. Physical stress, there has to be inflammation. It's a protection. It's a protection mechanism. It's a cushioning. It's the way we heal. So oxidative stress has its benefits. It is, again, we actually produce our own hydrogen peroxide. That is a form of oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is also produced when dopamine is metabolized as a way of helping to store heavy metals. We do not have an effective means of eliminating heavy metals from the body, so the body ends up oxidizing dopamine in order to store heavy metals, and believe it or not, it's in the brain. Substantia nigra, it's called that because it's black. Within a year after we're born, it's been collecting heavy metals. And I could go into all of this because, we wonder why we have people, mental and emotional disorders, addiction, and so forth, when they're able to identify that a newborn brain, substantia nigra, is not black, but within a year it's beginning to get black, and we know that dopamine is being metabolized in order to store this, and the predominant metal being stored is iron, but we have high levels of chronic fatigue. It's ridiculous to me what we've got going on. And if we could just realize that we are in high alert, our bodies are in high alert, and actually beginning to incorporate the essential oils. Now, I've talked about nutrition a little bit, and I will talk about that in future episodes, but I wanted just to say that the combination of nutrient-rich foods and essential oils, maybe a couple of supplements here and there, would be all that you would need. If you take medications, there maybe have to be a little bit more involved. It does get more involved because medications are stressful to the body. So again, this is an individualized approach. But if we realize that this is what's happening and that we have the ability to relieve this, granted, we can't do anything about the heavy metals, okay, that we have in our environment. That's something we can't do anything with. But see, if all of your dopamine, let's just look at it this way, if all of your dopamine is being oxidized to store heavy metal, then you have lower dopamine levels. So there are ways to increase your dopamine. I mean, now we have a body in under stress. So I'm kind of getting deep into it here, and I just want to back off for a minute and just say that oxidative stress is necessary. And then when it's no longer necessary, for instance, if the wound is healed, or if your wound is healed and and things kind of come back to the status quo, the body has the ability to deactivate that oxidative stress and go back into kind of a normal function, a stable function. But we're not experiencing that, and this is the reason for the degenerative diseases. This is the reason why we have so many people walking around with inflammatory challenges, because we have so much. And I just want to say this. I want to go on record by saying that taking your anti-inflammatories to relieve oxidative stress does not relieve your body's still producing it. You can, if we realize that we're actually making it, trying to eliminate it is one thing. I understand wanting to reduce the level of oxidative stress, and by taking antioxidants, I get that. But glutathione is something the body makes. If you give the body glutathione, it's not going to make it. I mean, again, this is a lot of what I talk about. So it takes a lot of patience. It takes faith. More importantly, it takes faith. And so, again, there may be call to take something like that temporarily, but it doesn't mean that you have to live on it forever, because your body has the ability to produce it. So if you're going to take something like that, you have to be helping it make it as well. And so all of these need to be taken into consideration. But as I mentioned, oxidative stress is something we produce. Taking anti-inflammatories, eating anti-inflammatory food is only going to help relieve some of the symptoms, which, yes, is going to be stress relief, but it's not getting to the root of the problem. It is not actually real. It's not accepting the fact that your body's producing it for a reason. And why is it producing it? It's producing oxidative stress because it is stressed, because it's in survival mode. That's why. It's time to ask why. It's time to help relieve the body's stress levels, and we can do that at the cellular level. If you want to ask me what oils I recommend, my God, let me just say, it depends on who you are and what you got going on. That's the only way I can answer that question. If you think you can go to a book and you can find your answers there, please think again. I can point out a number of oils, lavender, for instance, which is known to act like estrogen in the body. Yes, it is calming and soothing, but long-term effects are horrific if you think about it. Not to mention the fact the type of lavender you're getting may not be so good, because lavender is an expensive oil to produce, and they will substitute it with lower quality that has a different type of it has different constituents in it. That's how I will say that, which can be neurotoxic. So you got to know what you're getting, number one, and you got to know what you're doing, number two. So this is where I want to help you. So again, like I said, I've got a Synergessence closed group on Facebook. You're welcome to hit me up at Tammy@synergessence.com with your questions, or if you want to join the group, I'll be happy to send you the link. And there I will teach you how to use oils more specifically. If you'd like to join me on Q&A with Mother Nature, please go to Synergessence.com and sign up on the link there. Follow the link and sign up, and I'd be happy to entertain you, or not entertain you, but entertain your questions. I really, really want to help you guys. And please stay tuned for these podcasts, because I will also be selecting questions to answer during these podcasts, because that's what I'm here to do, is to teach you and make you, help you see it from a different way, so that you too can experience an improved sense of an improved quality to your life. Again, I'm not going to extend your life, but I will help you improve the quality. And again, this is not for everyone. This is, it's just not for everyone. People who are sensitive to smells may not like it. That I will say right off the bat, if you're sensitive to smell, you have an overactive autonomic nervous system. And so it would take some soothing to get that back into place, but that may start with dietary suggestions. So again, it's all very individualized. And I'm really excited to be doing this because I've got Q&A with Mother Nature here on my podcast. I've got Q&A in Mother Nature at synergessence.com, and I've got the Synergessence group on Facebook. We're mixing it up. We're getting to the root of the issue, and we have the courage to ask why, because once we ask why, we have a way out. Thanks so much for joining me. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Tammy Davis 8. And I would love for you to share these podcasts. Let's get the conversation going. Let's start this and let's help other people. It's just start we should be wellness warriors. Let's just start our tribe of wellness warriors, and let's teach, besides ourselves and our friends, let's show our children a different way to pave their future of health. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking with you next week. I look forward to your questions too. Thanks again.